Derrick Henry is going to be the reason the Baltimore Ravens win or they lose against the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the important role that Derrick Henry is playing in the divisional matchup against the Bills on Sunday. But before we get into that, I just want to say, unfortunately, I don't think Zay Flowers is going to play. Again, this isn't breaking news. This isn't from Jeff Zrebiec. This isn't from Adam Schefter, Josina Anderson. This isn't from any of those sources. But Zay Flowers did not practice today. That is from the sources. And Harbaugh said on Monday, we'll see if he's able to go later in the week. I just don't expect him to play. I would love to see him play, but honestly, as it looks right now, with a knee injury like he sustained, it would be very difficult for him to play, going on maybe only one half practice, right? Where he has, limited participation. Because again, he's not limited participating like today. He didn't do that. And, maybe if he does it tomorrow and has a full practice on Friday, but again, that's just really hoping at that point. So as I'm sitting right now as a Baltimore Ravens fan, and if any Bills fans are watching this as well, I'm probably expecting Zay Flowers to be out, which definitely hurts the Baltimore Ravens. But obviously not a positive, but in a good way to look at it is one of the reasons that the Baltimore Ravens have lost their playoff games under, with Lamar Jackson as quarterback, is they have abandoned the run. So the Ravens missing their number one pass catcher will hopefully incentivize them to try and maintain that run game, whether they're winning or losing. Now, again, if they're down 21 in the second half, okay, give up the run. I'm sorry. But give up the run at that point. But, against the Chiefs, when you're down 14 points or 10 points and you're just refusing to run the ball, that's how you get caught, right? The Ravens were averaging 5 yards per carry against the Tennessee Titans in that 2019 playoff game. But they abandoned the run because Mark Ingram had gotten hurt and Greg Roman wasn't necessarily trusting Gus Edwards with the ball, which is funny because Gus Edwards eventually obviously became the number one running back for the Baltimore Ravens, over the next couple of years. So overall, I'm expecting them to have to maintain running the ball because of Zay Flowers being out. The other aspect of this is the Ravens' way that they won the game in week 4 or 5 when they played the Bills the very first time was they ran the ball, and Derrick Henry ran all over them. Obviously, we all remember the first play of the Baltimore Ravens offensive game was Derrick Henry taking it to the house. I'm not expecting him to do that, right? We don't necessarily need, as great as it would be, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Derrick Henry just have a 70-yard touchdown run in the playoffs for us. That'd be great. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. The hope is that we rely on him and he's able to consistently, just like that Pittsburgh Steelers game, where he has a couple of big chunk runs, but then when you get to the third, fourth quarter, that's when he starts to kind of wear him down and ends up getting that 40-yard touchdown run where, kind of ran right by Patrick Queen. That's the kind of game that I'm hoping to see from the Ravens. Again, that Bills game was Derrick Henry out of the gate, just flat out, they weren't ready for him. They're going to be ready for him. They're going to be playing the run. But one of the biggest things is the weather in this game. And a lot of people are saying that this benefits the Bills. I can see that. There's aspects that benefit both teams, right? It benefits the Bills because they're used to playing in really, really, really cold games. They've played single degree weather games. I think it's about 8 degrees expected right now, not snowing. I think the wind chill is going to bring it to about 4 degrees is what I'm seeing. Again, this is a couple days out. So, that could potentially change, but expect it to be a single digit game. And Lamar Jackson has not played below 25 degrees. And I don't think Derrick Henry has either. They've definitely not played games in the teens, but at the same time, the way that the Baltimore Ravens play, we're not the Miami Dolphins. We're not a team that relies on this deep passing game, these intermediate crossing routes. Our quarterback doesn't necessarily have great arm strength. That's the Dolphins' problem, right? Their offense needs that warm temperatures because it's a lot easier to throw the ball downfield. The ball carries farther in the warmth. The ball, doesn't have to cut through really cold wind, right? when you take those hits, it hurts a little bit more. So, your receivers get a little bit more banged up. Your quarterback gets a little bit more banged up. It's just harder to do things as the game gets on. Instead, what the Ravens do, what they built their team for, the history of the organization has been about is running the ball and playing run defense. That's what they do. That is what they've done since they were founded. And it's a great thing for January and February and any outdoor game really in the winter, because running the ball, you don't have to throw it. And you wear down the other team, especially when you have a guy that I think is the greatest bruising running back in modern NFL history. Again, I think the greatest is Jim Brown, but Jim Brown it's been a long time since he played. So, in modern NFL history, right? Derrick Henry is the standard. Like, that is the best ever, of just the crazy physical running backs. He's 6'3", he's 250 pounds. Like, it's ridiculous. Trying to tackle him is unbearably difficult. And as Ravens fans, we've seen it. We saw how demoralized our defense was in 2019. Even in 2020, that was a very difficult game in 2020 when the Ravens beat the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs. Again, it was all about still stopping Derrick Henry. That's what the Bills are going to be about. The problem is, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers came out. Their plan very clearly from the get-go, stop Derrick Henry, right? Lamar Jackson keeps it on like 6 consecutive read plays. Lamar Jackson keeps it because TJ Watt crashes the running back. I don't necessarily know what the Bills are going to do, whether they'll crash Lamar or crash Derrick Henry. Either way, one of them is not getting crashed. When that happens, you are having to tackle Derrick Henry over and over and over again. He wears it out. Like, we've talked about this forever, right? Derrick Henry is the best at wearing teams out. And then in the third and fourth quarter, that's when he starts to break away because it just gets harder and harder to tackle him. The other problem is when you finally get a break from trying to tackle Derrick Henry in the run game, right? You're either trying to tackle Lamar Jackson, who is maybe the most elusive player since Barry Sanders and is probably on the Mount Rushmore of elusive football players in NFL history. You're either trying to tackle him, or you're trying to tackle like a speedster, super shifty, quick player in Justice Hill, or the ultimate speedster in Keaton Mitchell. A lot of speed. So like you're tired, you're worn out, you're being bullied. And it might not even be like a blowout. Like, this could be a close game, right? It could be 17-17, early in the fourth quarter, the Ravens have the ball and the defense is just gassed because they're trying to stop Derrick Henry. And all of a sudden, that's when you break the big one. So I'm expecting the Ravens to rely on this run game. And that's why I'm thinking that this game depends on Derrick Henry. And not necessarily saying whether or not Derrick Henry plays poorly. It's more on the sense that, does Derrick Henry get the ball? That's been the issue. If Derrick Henry, we said it before the Pittsburgh game, I'll say it before this game. If Derrick Henry gets 20 plus carries, I expect the Baltimore Ravens to win the game. That's my thought. That's my thought every single game with the Baltimore Ravens with Derrick Henry. And you look at most of the games they've lost, they abandoned the run, right? Especially early in the year. I think he got 12 carries against the Chiefs. He definitely didn't get 20 carries against the Raiders. It just felt like, and when we lost, I don't know how many got against the Browns game that we ended up losing, but that game was more on like, we dropped 3 interceptions and then also like 4 open passes. Like, that wasn't on Derrick Henry, but it's just like, if you give Derrick Henry the ball, and John Harbaugh said, we didn't bring him in here to give him the ball 30 times a game. In the regular season, no. But in the playoffs, that's kind of exactly what you want to do. That's how the Tennessee Titans made an AFC Championship game in 2019. And now you're sitting there and you got Derrick Henry. You got a good offensive line. And you got Lamar Jackson. So this passing game, which we saw against Pittsburgh, the passing game was good. We utilized Isaiah Likely in the slot. We utilized Rashad Bateman. He was getting open over the middle of the field. We were checking it down to other wide receivers, right? We had Steven Sims on a jet sweep. But really, it just came down to, third down. Lamar Jackson found his guys like Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Bateman. But on first and second down, it was run heavy. The Buffalo Bills are the team in the NFL that goes to base the least. Base means 7 in the front, 7, 4 in the secondary. So 2 corners, 2 safeties, and then, probably 4 D linemen, depending if you're on a 3-4, 4 on the line, and then 3 backers. They're in more nickel and dime coverages. Nickel meaning 1 extra defensive back, obviously the nickel corner, and then dime being 2 extra defensive backs. Typically, a safety comes in for one of those linebackers. So there's 1 linebacker, 3 safeties, or you could do 4 corners, depending on which situation you're doing. Sometimes you remove a defensive lineman, right? You go 3 on the line to get 2 slots essentially. If they're in 4 wide receiver personnel, 5 wide, something like that. A lot of the different options. I'm not trying to explain nickel and dime defenses right now, but when you're in those nickel and dime defenses, it's a lot harder to stop the run. So I assume the Bills are going to come out in base, which is beneficial. They were not able to run a lot of base in that first matchup because they were missing so many pieces. They will be able to run base in this game. The question is, how effective will it be? That's not their typical style of defense. This is a defense that thrives on forcing turnovers, not necessarily getting the most stops in the NFL, third down stops. They're a good defense. They force turnovers. But if you're running the football with Derrick Henry, and knock on wood, you don't fumble, it's going to be a lot harder to turn the ball over. So the Ravens, the key for winning this game is Derrick Henry, which we all knew. But I just wanted to make this video to get it clear my opinions on how the Ravens should go about this game, especially considering I'm expecting Zay Flowers to be out. But let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Do you think Zay Flowers is going to play? And then also, who's the X factor for the Ravens? Is it Derrick Henry, or is it somebody on the defense? A guy like, Brandon Stevens, right? If Brandon Stevens has a great game, the Ravens are probably winning. Or is it Marlon Humphrey? The guy that's been like the MVP for the defensive side of the ball. Is it Roquan stopping the run? Is it Kyle Hamilton shutting down Josh Allen? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below. And I'll see all of you again tomorrow.